Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash. Big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. At the beginning of our movie, we find alien fungi landing on Earth. They start spreading and taking over human bodies by entering through the ears, nose, or mouth. At this time, Shinichi, the protagonist of our movie, is sleeping in his room with headphones in his ears. One of the fungi descends and tries to enter his ear but fails, so it enters through his nose. At that moment, Shinichi wakes up and pushes it away, thinking it's just an ordinary bug. When he gets up and kills it, the alien organism flies into the air and enters his hand. Shinichi uses his phone charger cable to prevent it from spreading to the rest of his body. At this point, his mom hears the commotion and comes to him. She removes the cable from his hand to see what's going on. Unintentionally, she allows the alien organism to spread to the rest of his body. The next morning, Shinichi feels a strange sensation in his hand, but decides to ignore it and goes to school as usual. While in class, he realizes something strange is happening, especially when his arm stretches to reach a pencil he dropped. Later, while playing basketball with his friend, he manages to score an incredible goal from a long distance. When he returns home, he searches the internet for topics related to hands moving on their own. While browsing, an eye appears on his hand. He grabs a knife to try to cut it off, but as he gathers the courage to make a cut, his hand transforms into a strange snake-like shape and attacks him. It then changes again into a slightly friendlier form. The new form has a mouth in the palm of his hand, an eye, and the fingers become tiny arms and legs of the creature. Shinichi is terrified and demands that the creature return his hand, but the creature tells him it consumed all the cells in his hand, so it could never return to its original state. After spending the entire night awake and scared of his new hand, Shinichi goes to school the next day. There, the creature in his hand tells him to call it Migi, which means right hand in Japanese. At school, Migi asks Shinichi to take him to the library to study. Migi quickly adapts to everything, including self-defense techniques. Meanwhile, the fungi that landed on Earth also begin taking over people's bodies, consuming their brains, and controlling their victims to lure others to eat them. While Shinichi is on his way home from school, Migi senses another parasite nearby and wants to investigate what happens when a parasite takes over the brain. Migi forces Shinichi to get off the bus and takes him to a butcher shop where the person they are looking for is supposed to be. When they arrive, the door is locked, but Migi searches the area and finds another entrance. Once inside, Shinichi walks cautiously until he encounters a very strange creature with a human body and a cauliflower-like head. The creature buries its head into a human corpse, eating it. When it notices Shinichi, it assumes he's a normal human but also senses Migi's presence and assumes Shinichi is another parasite. It extends its arm to offer him food, but Shinichi declines, saying he's already eaten. The parasite realizes Shinichi is still alive and that Migi only controls his hand. Sensing hostility, Migi tells Shinichi to run, but Shinichi gets cornered with no escape. This forces Migi to act to protect him, knowing that if Shinichi dies, so will he. The butcher parasite cuts off its own hand and tells Migi they can stay and eat Shinichi together. Migi takes a long time to respond, so the butcher changes his mind and attacks them. Migi blocks the attack at the last moment. The butcher uses his tentacles to attack, but Migi quickly ends the fight by transforming Shinichi's fingers into sharp blades and slicing the other creature's neck. This fight draws the attention of people outside, who call the police. Shinichi returns home before the police arrive at the butcher shop. When the police investigate, they discover the place was the hideout of the human-eating alien parasite they've been searching for, but still don't know who killed it. At school, during the principal's speech, Migi senses another parasite nearby. They begin searching for it but don't find it until the principal announces a new teacher joining the school, Tamaya Ryoko. Migi immediately realizes she is the second parasite. In the next scene, Tamaya walks to her office, with Shinichi following her. When she notices him, she tells him not to be afraid because all she wants is to live a normal life like any other human. She also says that if she wanted to kill him, Migi would have sensed her intent. Tamaya takes them to an empty place to talk, where she introduces them to other parasites. Shimada, a student like Shinichi, and Mr. A, a teacher who has taken over a police officer's body and refuses to reveal his real name. After everyone gets acquainted, Tamaya says they want to live normal lives with humans and need to help each other stay away from the authorities. She also reveals she conducted a strange experiment and discovered she can get pregnant, meaning she can produce a human child in her womb. She wants to conduct more experiments to understand how this is possible and discover the purpose of her existence. Shinichi refuses to cooperate with them, but she warns him not to interfere, especially since she is now at the school and can harm the students if he and Migi act recklessly. After the meeting, Migi warns Shinichi to keep an eye on Mr. A, sensing negative intentions from him. After this terrifying encounter, Shinichi returns home and realizes humans are in danger. He asks his mom not to leave the house, but she dismisses his concerns, thinking he's acting strangely since the incident with his hand. They argue, and Shinichi leaves for school. After class, while heading home, Migi senses Mr. A again and warns Shinichi about him. Just stand up when the officer finishes talking. Then Migi tells him to run because his enemy is very strong. After Shinichi runs for a while, he starts to get tired. Migi takes control of him and confronts the enemy. He asks him why he is chasing them. The man tells him he saw the wound on the butcher's body at the station and that he knows they were the ones who killed him. That's why he sees them as a threat that must be eliminated. After he says this, his true form is revealed, and he transforms into his strange shape. Migi gets ready for the battle, and as they fight each other, Shinichi slowly approaches his enemy. Suddenly, he stabs him in the chest with a metal rod, causing him to bleed heavily. The enemy wasn't expecting this, nor did he think humans could attack him. Because of this, he didn't protect his body well. As soon as Shinichi sees this scene in front of him, he gets disgusted and runs home. But his happiness doesn't last long because the enemy isn't dead yet. The creature looks around for any nearby body to transfer itself to, but unfortunately, due to Shinichi's bad luck, his mother is returning from work at that moment. She hears the sound of the dying man and decides to help him. But as soon as she gets close, the creature possesses her as well. "You deserve all the best," it says mockingly. Meanwhile, Migi and Shinichi are sleeping in bed. Migi senses a parasite approaching them. He wakes Shinichi to prepare him. Shinichi grabs a knife and waits, while Migi calculates the distance between them and the creature. When it stands in front of the door, Shinichi realizes it's the parasite that possessed his mother and refuses to believe it. He argues with Migi, who tries to convince him to attack her. In the middle of their argument, he learns that the creature that possessed her is the same one from earlier. Still, Shinichi refuses to believe it. He tells her he loves her and begins to apologize for the argument they had. But as soon as he finishes crying, the parasite uses her body to stab Shinichi in the heart and walks away. Migi emerges from his hand and enters his chest to repair the damaged cells. After a few hours, Shinichi finally wakes up. He goes to the bathroom to check the wound on his body in the mirror, but is surprised to find it has completely disappeared. Afterward, Shinichi stops going to school, prompting his friend Satomi to visit him to understand what's happening. But Shinichi ignores her and avoids her. He goes to Ryoko's office, and as soon as she sees Shinichi, she talks to him about the officer's body they found and accuses him of being the one who killed that creature. Migi explains to him what happened and asks her if she knows its location. She refuses to tell him, saying it has disappeared. Migi then asks why she introduced them to each other if she knew it could cause problems. She tells him it was just another experiment of hers. Shinichi gets angry because his mother died because of her experiment. He pulls out a knife and threatens her, but she calmly stands up and transforms her body into combat mode. She's no easy opponent. However, she changes her mind when she senses something different about Shinichi. She decides to leave them and walk away to monitor his development. But Shinichi is still angry, so he throws the knife at her. She catches it with a strand of her hair and throws it back, landing very close to his face. When Shinichi gets home, he vows to avenge his mother. He walks around town looking for the creature, and as they leave the subway station, Migi tells him he senses many parasites nearby. Shinichi follows his instructions and goes to the location, stopping in a crowd of people gathered at a political rally. When Shinichi looks at the candidate and the people around him, he immediately realizes they are parasites. It turns out there's an entire political party made up of parasites, with a few human members as well. When Shinichi returns home, he and Migi discuss the parasites' plan to take over the entire state. The detective investigating the case, whom we saw at the butcher shop, visits Shinichi at his home. He talks to him about the officer's body found near his house, but they leave as soon as Shinichi responds suspiciously, claiming he knows nothing. After some time, Shinichi returns to school to collect his belongings from his locker. Satomi approaches him and invites him to dinner. Before he can respond, Shimada appears, and Satomi introduces him to Shinichi as the new student at school. Of course, Shinichi knows who he is. He asks him what he's doing here and tells him to leave. Satomi doesn't understand what's happening and gets upset with Shinichi for being rude. She forces him to shake hands with Shimada. While shaking hands, Shimada squeezes Shinichi's hand hard, almost crushing it. After Shimada leaves, he goes to their gang leader's office and tells her about Shinichi's extraordinary strength and development. It turns out Shimada was testing him to see the effect of Migi's cells on him. Meanwhile, Shinichi is at home preparing to search for the creature again. But Migi stops him, saying that after using his cells to save him, he won't be able to wake up once he falls asleep. If this happens during a fight, it will be the end of Shinichi. Elsewhere, at their headquarters, the gang leader argues with the other parasites, telling them they are drawing too much attention by consuming too many human bodies, which will eventually expose them. One of them ignores her, saying humans have already found a way to detect them. When a strand of their hair is pulled, it curls up on its own, indicating it's only a matter of time before they are discovered. Meanwhile, Satomi visits Shinichi again, inviting him to dinner. This time, she takes him with her after school. They go to the grocery store to buy what they need, and on their way out, Shinichi hears the sound of a car hitting a dog. He hands the bags he's carrying to Satomi and goes to check on the dog. When he realizes it's dead, he coldly throws it in the trash. When Satomi sees this, she gets upset and asks him why he's acting this way. He tells her that since the dog is dead, it's just a useless piece of meat. When Satomi notices his coldness, she asks him what's happened to him and leaves. When Shinichi is alone, he talks to Migi, telling him that he's becoming more like him over time. Because of the cells that merged with his body, he's slowly transforming into an alien in his personality, strength, and even his way of expressing himself. At school, the principal notices that the woman is pregnant, and he decides to kick her out. So she decides to go to Ryuko's parents' house. But the mother notices that this is not her daughter, and she starts screaming to call the police, forcing the alien to reveal its true form, and it eats the mother's heart and cuts her neck. After a while, during their argument over something, Satomi goes to her art class, where the girls are using Shimada as a model. But suddenly one of the girls pulls a strand of his hair, which immediately starts to curl up. When the girls see what happened, they get terrified. They stand in a corner of the classroom, and Shimada starts counting the victims he is going to kill. After finishing the count, he transforms into his original form and tells them that he will finish them off quickly so they won't feel any pain. But Satomi throws acid at him, burning his face and causing him immense pain. The girls take advantage of his suffering and run away, but Shimada, while in pain, hits one of the girls with his tentacles, splitting her body in half in front of Satomi. At that moment, Migi senses Shimada's presence and Shinichi hears the girls scream. He starts imagining what's happening and rushes to them, but unfortunately, he arrives too late, and all his classmates are already dead. The moment he sees his friends' bodies, he goes into a state of shock. Migi tries to bring him back to his senses and refocus. Little by little, Shinichi begins to get angry, and he looks for Shimada. Meanwhile, the gang leader is preparing a chemical compound in her lab. When Shimada goes upstairs, he finds Satomi hiding in the closet, so he knocks her out of it. As soon as Satomi gets up, she tries to run, but Shimada hits her leg with his tentacles. At that moment, Shinichi finally arrives and strikes Shimada, standing between him and Satomi. After Shimada gets up, he attacks Shinichi and cuts off his arm, separating Migi from him. But Migi quickly returns to his arm with ease. Satomi watches everything that's happening, all of this, and Shimada screams from the pain of the acid poured on him. At that moment, the gang leader comes from behind Shimada. She says he's now standing in the way of his target and throws a Molotov cocktail at him. When Shinichi senses the danger, he grabs Satomi and jumps with her as the building explodes behind them. After this incident, the police arrive and go upstairs, finding Shimada still alive. They shoot at him, but Shimada kills them effortlessly. Outside, Migi communicates with Shinichi, telling him that Shimada is still alive and that he's heading toward the roof. So Shinichi goes after him for revenge for his friends. He picks up an iron rod. Migi transforms into a bow, and Shinichi uses the rod as an arrow, aiming it at Shimada's heart from a very far distance, just like he used to do in archery classes. After defeating his enemy, the gang leader comes and tells him she's going to disappear to try out motherhood. But before she leaves, she gives him the address of Professor A's hideout. As soon as Shinichi goes to the place, Professor A sees him and moves to a more secluded area to fight him. But along the way, Migi keeps telling him that he wants to sleep and that he will soon fall asleep. Then he transforms into a blade to help Shinichi in his fight, and afterward, he falls asleep. But even on his own, Shinichi manages to handle himself well, defending himself skillfully and blocking attacks with great agility. But when Professor A is about to kill him, his mother takes control of half his body and tries to restrain the tentacles but fails. Shinichi realizes that his mother won't be able to save herself any longer. During the fight, he decapitates Professor A, finally avenging his mother and allowing her to rest in peace. After this battle, Shinichi goes to visit Satomi in the hospital. While she's unconscious, he promises her that he will eliminate all these parasitic creatures, so no one else will suffer like she did because of these aliens. While he's talking to Migi, we see a photographer standing at a distance taking pictures of them both, indicating his connection to the aliens. At this point, all the candidates associated with the aliens win the elections, including the mayor, making them a part of the government and giving them authority over human laws. Now, their leader finally understands why they are here, and the reason is to exterminate the entire human race so the planet becomes more suitable for everyone. And with that, we conclude the first part, and today's movie ends, and we hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next